Blender for Noobs.
Hello, this is Dan Nobles and welcome to Blender for Noobs. In this video we're going to start modeling and actually model a table and a chair, and hopefully it's going to be a fairly simple model. If you've been following the videos on Blender for Noobs, you may have wondered, well, when are we actually going to create a model? And now is the time. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and create a cube because that's probably what you have by default. And if not, just do your Shift A and like this, go to Mesh and click Cube there and it'll create a cube for you. And by the way, let me turn on my reference keys here so you can see what I'm doing. So what we're going to do, we're going to model the table, and then we're going to put a material on it, a very simple material, and then we're going to just take a render of it just to go through that whole process in the very basic kind of way. So let's get started. I'm going to hit 3 to go into side view, and I'm going to scale this cube down. So, and I'm going to do it on the Z axis, so just hit S and Z and just move your mouse down there. And this is going to be sort of like the tabletop here. Okay. And then you want to hit Tab, and this brings you into the edit mode, which you can see down here. And we're going to make the areas which are going to be the legs. So what we can do is you want to do a Control R and just move your mouse wheel up once, and that'll create 2 of them, and then click so you have the 2 lines. And then I'm going to scale them along the y-axis, so S, Y, and just move the mouse over. And what I'm doing is I'm creating what's going to be the 4 corners, which are going to be the legs. So I'm really looking at this width here. So I need some on the other side as well, so I'm going to do a Control R and just move your mouse over to this area and roll the mouse wheel up once. That'll give you 2 lines, and then select and do a scale X, SX, and just move that out. And you want to move it out until you see like how big the legs might be on a table. Okay, so if this is the top, then we need to extend the legs from the bottom. In order to do that, we need to, you could do it by selecting the vertices of the legs. I move in and zoom in. So that's a face there, but we're going to split this to faces so we can easily select each face, and I'm holding down the Shift key and selecting. So we got our 4 faces, and what we need to do is we need to extrude these faces down so we have the legs. And so I'm going to do an E, and just hit E and start moving your mouse, and you'll see that you can bring the legs down. And if you just deselected like I did, and if you want them longer, you can move the Z up and down like that. Okay, so those are the basic legs. Of the table, and in fact that can be a very simple table right there. So let's make a chair. I'm going to do a Shift A, Mesh, and create a cube once more. I'm just going to move it over here along the x-axis. And just thinking about how the chair might look, we need a base of the chair. So we actually could do the same thing. We could use this as the chair. So let's I'm going to hit X and delete this cube, and I'm going to select this table, and I'm just going to do a Shift D to duplicate. And if you select, then you actually have that duplication selected, so I'm going to move it along the x-axis. And let me go into side view. I'm going to hit 3 on the numpad key. Oh, no, I don't. I need front view. 1 on the numpad key. So of course, you know, it's going to be smaller than the table. So what we need to do is we need to kind of move this part over to start getting the legs of the chair. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and notice that this part right here, which is the occlude geometry, it's darkened, which means you can only select what you see in front of you there. You're not selecting the faces behind. So we need to select that so we can select not only this, but it'll select through that. So back to 1. And I'm just going to hit B and draw a box around this area here and just move it over. So it's a little bit too tall. I'm going to hit B to select all of these faces here, move it down. And of course it's really too wide, so I'm going to go into top view. That's 7 on the numpad key. And I'm just going to select these faces here, which you can see it's selecting all of that area there. And I'm going to use the Y manipulator, just move it over. Okay, so that will be like the base of our chair. And luckily we already have some faces here we can work with to get the back. So just going to select that face and that face. And if you have any trouble selecting the faces, like, you know, you're getting some on the bottom, like that one right there is the bottom of the seat, then just turn your occlude back on and it'll only select the faces that you can see. And as you learn more about modeling, you'll find that that is a very helpful feature once you get into more complex models. So I'm going to select this face here and shift select this face here. And we're going to do an E, and it's already along the axis that we need, which is the Z axis. And I'm just going to move the mouse up, which kind of gives us the back of the chair there. And of course you need some kind of brace back there, so what you can do is just do a Control R, and that's called an edge split. Move that up a little bit, and I'm going to do a Control R over here. Move that up a little bit. Actually, let's do that a different way. Oh no, that's fine. Well, no, let's do it a little bit different. I'm going to do a Control Z, which is undo. Get rid of those. Okay, I'm going to do a Control R and do the same thing before, just up once on your numpad, so you'll have 2 breaks there. And same thing over here, Control R. Use your scroll wheel on the mouse and select. So now we can basically use this as the back. So how can we do this? We can, what we need to do is extend this face over to this face. So I'm just going to select face and extrude. And you'll notice it extrudes along the y-axis, which is exactly what we need. So we're over here. Okay, so now you need to hook these together. And get rid of that. So in order to hook things together, there's a few ways you can do it, but I'm just going to show you right now. The easiest way probably, or the way you'll be most accustomed to when you do this, is using the vertices. Actually, before that, let me show you. Select the faces that you have. I'm going to shift select both of these faces and use X and delete faces. Okay, so we only want to hook the vertices together. So I'm going to select vertices, and I'm going to select this vertice, shift select this one, and if you do Alt M, it'll merge these vertices. And I'm just going to, you have some options here. At first and at last just depends on which vertice or vertex you selected first or last. So I want it to merge at the last one I selected, so I'm going to say at last. Okay, Same thing here. Select one, shift select the other, Alt M, at last. Same thing here, shift select one and shift select the other one, Alt M, at last. Same thing with this one. Okay, so a very, very, very basic chair. And if I'm tab back into object mode, then I can take this chair and just move it over and put it in place. So a very, very basic chair and table. And if you say, well, you know, that's nice, but I wanted more chairs than that. Well, you've already got your chair selected. Just do a Shift D, which is duplicate, and select. Move that chair over. And while you got it in this position, just do a RZ, which is rotate along the Z axis. And type in on your numpad 180, which just rotates it 180 degrees. And if you go to your top view, you can use G to move kind of freely, but you're in your top view, so you're really moving only along the X and Y axis. And you can just put it in place like that. Okay. Same thing if you want to put, you know, chairs on the other side as well. Okay, so that is the basic table and chair. Not real pretty, but just a basic, very, very easy modeling exercise. I hope anyway. So now we're just going to assign some materials to the chair, to the table and the chair. So I'm going to select the table and come over to materials, which I'm sitting in here right now, which is this little ball looking thing here. And I'm going to do a new material, because right now it's just using the basic gray that's automatic. So click new. And by the way, I want you to be in Cycles Render up here. If you're in Blender Render, go to Cycles Render. The reason I'm not going to cover Blender Render, the internal Blender engine at all, is because, as I understand it, it's being phased out. So I'm going to stick with the Cycles Render, and as we go, we'll learn more about cycles. So we've created this material, and right off the bat, what I do is I usually want to name the material. So let's just name this, I don't know, let's call it LT Brown for light brown. And you'll notice that you have a color selection here, so just click that. And brown is sort of like between yellow and orange. So you can go to like somewhere in here and then darken it up. And maybe bring it out a little bit. So when you move your mouse away from that, you can see it's kind of brown. And diffuse is nice. I mean, that's fine for this surface. You can change it to be different things, but we're going to get more into working with cycles later on. Okay. And so now that table's brown, you don't see it here because in cycles it doesn't automatically change the colors of what you're seeing. You can change it to show in the viewport, but that's okay. So we're going to move over to the chair, and we're going to put it the same color, so you don't have to create a new material here. You can just drop down from here and you'll see the brown material that we've already created. So just select that. Same thing with this chair. So they're automatically brown. So you've just assigned materials to your table and chair. Okay, now for the camera to get a render. If you don't have a camera already in your scene, all you need to do is do Shift A again, which is the add, and just come down here to camera, and that adds a camera. In fact, let me do one to show you how it appears initially. It's right here. So actually mine appeared kind of strange, unless I selected the wrong one. Probably your camera is going to appear closer to something like that. So you just select your camera and you move it around to where it needs to be. If you go to 7 top view and hit G, you can move it around. So I'm going to move it around kind of where my other camera's at here. Go into side view, 3 on the numpad, and just do a R, which is going to allow you to freely rotate. Okay, and just kind of move it. You're kind of moving the camera around to where you think the view would be. Go back to 7 top view, and I'm going to use G to move the camera, and R to rotate. And then on 3, I'm going to look at the side view just to see what it looks like. So it kind of looks like it's pointing at the table, but let's make sure. You can go over to one of your other views and you can hit Control 0, and that will make the camera that you have selected the active camera. So you can see we kind of see the table in our viewport, which is fine. And to render, we just do a F12. Okay, so not very pretty, but if you want to move the camera around, you can move that up, get a little bit of a perspective on it. You can even come over to your camera window and use G to move your camera around. You can use ZZ to zoom in. And don't worry too much about all these keyboard shortcuts. As you get more and more into modeling, you'll get used to a lot of these shortcuts that you're using. So I didn't really like the color of that brown. I mean, it's too dark. So I'm going to go into the color. Just going to lighten it up some and do another F12 to see what it looks like. Okay, so there's your basic table and chairs. Again, not very pretty, but it's just a way to get a basic model done. And if you're not seeing your renders correctly or something's not going right, go over to your render settings here and just check your settings. Like mine's really set too high for this, but you can set the resolution and you want to set your samples. Your render samples are going to be how much resolution you're getting in the render, how much detail. And 100 is really low. It's not getting a whole lot of detail at all, but it's good for like a preview type thing. The preview samples are for if you set how you display your object here and go to rendered, it'll actually show you the rendered view in real time, which is pretty nice in cycles. So you can zoom in, you can rotate, oops. So you can kind of see how it's rendering out in different views that you have. And then if you need to get back to your normal 3D view, just go back to solid. Another thing that if it's not quite looking right to you, you may not have some good lighting in there. So you can do a Shift A and create a lamp. I'm just going to create a sun and move that up. And just kind of, you want to position it in some way that it's going to light the scene. So if you go to your properties for this for the sun, then you can change some of the things here. The strength is how bright it's going to be. We'll bump that up to about 3 just to see what it looks like. And I'm going to hit F12. So now you can see with the sunlight, looks a little bit better because you're starting to get some shadows and detail in it like that. So, very simple model. Just going from your basic cube to making an actual model, and also rendering with the camera and lighting the scene a little bit. Very, very basic, but at least, you know, this way it can get you started. So once you have your model here and you want to save it, of course, just go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it Table, or I'm creating a directory here, and I'm going to name it Table here, and save it. Okay, and if you're following along with these videos, just keep this file because I'll probably use it again when doing some other things in Blender. Hope you enjoyed this video, and talk to you soon.